An injection well is a deeper than wide pipe that is placed vertically into the ground located downstream of potable water sources. Injection wells were developed in the 1950s in the United States mainland to provide a means for chemical companies to inject industrial waste into deep wells. At that time, injection was a relatively safe and inexpensive option for the disposal of unwanted and often hazardous industrial byproducts. Today, it is also used as a method for disposing of human wastewater.
My name is Robin Knox. I'm a water quality specialist. I have 25 years experience in clean water regulation and pollution control, and I'm currently working with the University of Hawaii on Maui, looking at the impacts of sewage injection wells on the coral reef and our ocean resources. Wastewater management on Maui is very challenging. We live in, this very volcanic island with steep slopes and a lot of rocky soils, and it's hard to install sewer systems. We have, County of Maui has sewer systems that cover the major populated areas, and the wastewater from those collection systems goes into treatment systems and then is disposed of by either injection into injection wells, where the wastewater then goes into the groundwater and from there can get into the ocean, or alternatively it could be reused, but we're very limited right now on how much we reuse.
The County of Maui processes nearly 15 million gallons of wastewater per day. Only 3 million gallons, which amounts to 22% of that effluent, is reused. The Kihei and Lahaina wastewater reclamation facilities produce recycled water that meets or exceeds all State Department of Health standards. This reclaimed water is called R1 effluent. R1 effluent is suitable for landscape irrigation, crop irrigation, construction activities, cooling, toilet flushing, and for animals to drink.
The 3 county plants, the big ones, are in Kahului, and Lahaina and Kihei.
The water comes into our treatment plant. We screen out things like rags and other kind of large things like sticks, and then we give the wastewater a lot of air. We basically breed the microorganisms, and while we're giving them air, we run them through different environments of air where we control their life cycle. And what we do is that takes the nitrogen, which is the big concern for ocean environment, which is a solid material, and it, through their life cycle, turns it into gas and it goes off into the environment. And the air, the atmosphere is mostly nitrogen anyway. So basically 60-70% of the nitrogen that's in wastewater is transferred to gas and goes off into the atmosphere. We keep feeding the microorganisms air, they keep eating, and eventually they cling together and they separate from the water. So we end up with clean water that looks a lot like drinking water, and these biosolids, which I already said go to composting. So the water is then chlorinated, we run it through another filtration process, and then it gets to the point where we have to get rid of it. So we get rid of our water in 2 ways. Either we reuse it, and we reuse from the Lahaina treatment plant about 1 million gallons a day, or about 20% of that water. And that's mostly used at Kaanapali on the golf courses and for greenways and things like that. So that water that gets reused goes through ultraviolet disinfection, which are ultraviolet lamps that sterilize any pathogens that are in that water. And so about 1 million gallons of that water every day goes towards reuse. The other water, about 4 million gallons, maybe a little less, goes down the injection wells. The injection well water does not go through the ultraviolet treatment. It goes down these deep pipes into the ground. They go down a couple of 100 feet, and that water moves outward through the ground, eventually comes out into the ocean.
I don't want to knock our injection well people, Steve Parapacoli, Dave Taylor, everybody, they're doing awesome work. And they are following their standards, but right now I feel they aren't up to par. They need to be more strict, and even you heard that from Robin Knox's testimonies and everything.
Most injection wells in Maui County deposit effluent at depths greater than 300 feet below the water table. However, because the effluent is less dense than brackish groundwater, it quickly rises to the well's surface and is ejected at shoreline springs. Even though treated, wastewater effluent contains residual amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus, two compounds that are constituents of plant fertilizer. The growth-promoting properties of these compounds are the same whether on land or sea, providing a variety of algae species with a nutrient mixture that is ideal for aggressive and unnatural growth.
The injection of wastewater into the ocean can be a problem if the pollutant loads associated with the wastewater are higher than what the natural ecosystem can handle. And in particular, nutrients are a problem with coral reefs because the coral reef is normally a low nutrient environment, especially for nitrogen. And sewage, even sewage that's fairly well treated, still has a pretty significant nitrogen load. So one of the issues is nitrogen, but we know that sewage is a complex mix of all kinds of things, and it includes other nutrients, micronutrients, different minerals that plants need to grow. And so when you put all of this things that are good for plants out in the water and you happen to have an invasive algae or perhaps even a native algae that really likes the conditions, that algae can take over and bloom. And that can cause problems on the reef with competition for space, smothering of the reef, and even can cause shifts in the microbial populations of the reef as well. There's recent evidence by the research team that the nitrogen does fuel the algae blooms. Megan Daler, who is the researcher looking at the Lahaina plant in detail, she has done experiments where she, first of all, there's a tracer of nitrogen, a stable isotope that has a different signal if the nitrogen source is fertilizer versus animal waste such as human sewage. So she's detected that there is a large signal for sewage in the vicinity of the injection wells. Then she's also done experiments with wastewater addition that show that the algae actually respond to the wastewater additions. So they grow more, they get a deeper color. To me, as a pollution control expert, they were very telling because it showed a direct response in the environment and a tracer that could be associated with the source. So these are important pieces of information to help us understand how to control the pollution. As injection wells go, the ones on Maui are relatively shallow, several hundred feet. They are in the coastal brackish water zone. The water that's being injected is fresh water, the sewage, and it's less dense than the salt water. So it has a tendency to make a buoyant plume in the groundwater and come up out right on the reef. And it's interesting over on the reef where the Lahaina effluent comes out, it's even actually warm. You can feel it.